Hello, everybody. It's 11:42 p.m. Central Time on the 27th of April, 2023. Still Thursday here in the United States. Might as well just call it the 28th, because we're going to be rolling over to midnight here in 15 minutes while I'm doing the update here. And let me wish you a good, happy weekend already. I guess it's Friday already internationally, so anyway, let's go ahead and turn on a display capture. In case you don't know where you are, you're here looking at earthquakes. They are plotted on the planet, and the earthquakes are coming from the USGS, Geophone Potsdam over in Europe. We also have the Australian feed turned on so that we can see what's going on down in the southern hemisphere. And I do have some breaking news for everybody in case you were watching or if you were not. A new, deep, large earthquake has struck below the West Pacific. And this follows the arrival of our solar storm that arrived. And if you're not familiar with how the solar storm activity can affect earthquake activity, just simply put, the solar storm, the charged particles scuff their feet across the carpet of the atmosphere, the ionosphere up above, and that charge starts to glow, and you get the northern lights, for instance. And the northern lights came all the way down over central United States and central Europe, a big display of electrical display from the sun and charged particles scuffing their feet across the carpet of the atmosphere. That power goes to ground. That was about 2 days ago that this happened. Now, within 2 to 3 days of all that power going to ground, as I told you 2 to 3 days ago and yesterday, to watch for new, big, deep earthquake activity to come vibrating back up from the core or from the center. After all that power goes to ground 2 to 3 days later, we start to see stuff like this. So what happened? A new, big, deep earthquake struck below here on the Indo-Australian plate, where the red marker is a current new, deep 5.5 is there at 571 kilometers deep. These are happening down below the plate, or at the bottom of the plate. Then, within a few days, up to 7 to 10 days, after the deep quakes, we look around where the deep quakes are for a spread to begin that's big, shallow, and affects people up at the surface. Now, a new earthquake has been reported over on the opposite side of the plate, a new 5, directly across, parallel, on the opposite side of the plate. How many thousands of miles is that? That's at least 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,000 miles apart within hours of each other. We're moving on both sides of the Indo-Australian plate. The reason that is, and the reason there's a bunch of equally spaced earthquakes going all the way up towards Kamchatka and all the way up to India and all the way across, is because something's coming up down below the Indo-Australian plate, which was the topic of discussion in my last video over here on my YouTube channel, right here 20 hours ago, and here 2 days ago, talking about the area down below the West Pacific, down below Indo-Australia, and watching for new deep quakes. Back to it. New big deep quake struck down below, 6.2. We watch for up to a magnitude larger. That takes us up to 7.2 on its own right. So we would watch for a new 7.2 earthquake to pop off next to this deep quake within 7 to 10 days, if it was just on its own. But we have other activity that's going on. A deep earthquake struck down below New Zealand here, and there's a volcano right next to where these two deep earthquakes are reported below New Zealand. These struck first. So first below New Zealand. Now hold up, because look where we are at New Zealand. First deep earthquakes down here, then deep earthquakes up here. Something's going on down below, and we were expecting this, again, from the solar storm to come vibrating back up with very low frequency vibrating out of the core, coming up and hitting the underside of the plate. So just if you're new here, let me just quickly explain, guys. This vibrating wave comes up from the core, and it hits the underside of the plate. We get deep earthquakes then, of course. But then the spread comes up through the plates and follows the edges of the plate boundaries out and away. So you can start to follow this out and away from the disturbance that's happening now. This is a new push that's happening now, and this is going to affect us for the next 7 to 10 days around the whole planet. This is on top of the previous push that happened. And just take a look at that. Here's our 7.0 level activity from the past 2 days ago. And need I remind everybody that we had a big, deep 7 right below here 12 days ago, 13 days ago, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, a big deep 7 struck here. Then followed, 11 days later, by these two 7s. So deep earthquakes are followed within 7 to 10 days by shallower, larger earthquakes on all sides, or both sides in this case, of the deep 7. Now we've got a deep 6 point something, right? Where is it? Deep 6.6? Whether it's a deep 6.2 or a 6.6, we have a deep 6 point something. So I would call that about the same size as the deep 7 that struck here, and we have a deep 6.6 here. Something's going on down below the Indo-Australian, guys. Look, you get a deep 7 on one side, and then you get a deep 6 on the other, and then you get 7 spreading out on all sides from that. Come on, there's something going on there. So what's going on? Well, the spread. But the core is where it's coming from, and the solar activity is what's exciting the core. Now let's look at the spread of earthquakes. It really does look like an equidistant spaced series of earthquakes, and it is. It's a standing wave spreading out, dropping off the same sized earthquakes all the way around the plate. So this gets me into the rest of the update. So we have a new big deep earthquake, but that's not all which has happened. Last night, when I did my update yesterday's video topic of discussion was North Japan was moving finally. It was totally quiet up here on the north side, and then we saw this marked in pink. As my premiere was displaying last night on YouTube, literally within 2 hours of me talking about this area moving up here and telling us to watch it, Japan, South Japan broke right next to Okinawa, right here along the plate boundary. Let me show you. Right here where this stack of earthquakes is. So here happened last night after I was talking about up here shifting and moving and talking about watching at Japan, and now the south side broke. But what's important on this, even more than just the south side breaking, is the size in which it broke. Well, look at that. 5.3, 5.1, 5.2, and a bunch of 4s. Now, if you take the 5.3 plus the bunch of 4s, we're right at 5.4 to 5.5 energy. And that matters because of the other 5.3, 5.4, and 5.5 earthquakes. Let me rattle them off for you in case you don't know. 5.2 to 5.3 struck down here at New Zealand. 5.3 to 5.4 struck over here at the Indo-Australian plate boundary in the Indian Ocean. Go back 2 days. And we have the others that struck down to the south, again, around the same size. And by the way, they upgraded these to 5.7, 5.8. But they were all 5.5 to begin with. So New Zealand, all the way across to the West Indian Ocean at the plate boundary. And then look what happened today up on the plate boundary in India. Let me show this to you. It's going to make way more sense in 2 seconds here. The outside edge of this whole thing, this whole plate, the Indo-Australian plate, moving on a 5.5 to 5.7 basis all the way around first. Now we have a new deep earthquake down below it that's going to move it more. And up here on the north side, at the border with China, a new 5.5 struck there as well today. Now you'll also notice there's a mid-range 4 out here at the bend in the plate in central China. Let me take you back over and show you. This is the spot right here just south where we're watching for up to 6.5 at the bend in the plate, China-Myanmar border. I'm adjusting my warned area now that the bend has been hit by a 4 over to the east, ever so slightly to the south into Myanmar. We also have Laos over to the east. We have Bangladesh and India over to the west, and Myanmar right in the middle. Now you can kind of see it. It's like a triangulated three-way point between all of our earthquakes. I'm going to expect something up to 6.5 to strike there. Let me show it to you on the USGS map. See the red line? Okay, we were warning here right at the bend for the 6.5 to hit, but now that the bend has been hit, the spot was hit, but it was by a 4, and all that does is divide the area in half, and so now we look here instead of here. It's not that much of a shift. It's 500-mile shift of the warned area. The whole Indo-Australian plate is shifting. You don't need me to tell that to you when you can just look at the earthquakes over the last 2 days here, and you can see that we're moving all the way from New Zealand across, over, up past Japan, and we're moving over across the Indo-Australian plate up to India. But we don't stop there. Look at this line of quakes that goes across Iran and over into Europe. Now, make note of the earthquakes in Iran, because they're 4.9 and 4.9. And a 4.8 and a 4.4, but 4.9, 4.9. Let's just call them 2 5s. And let me show you Iran on the plate boundary map here. There it is. Now you see the 2 quakes on the USGS map. They have the plate boundary on the south, the red line. But what about on the north? Let me take you over and show you on good old Google Earth. We're looking at topography now because there's something I want you to see that the USGS does not have marked. Here's Iran. I can turn on the borders just so you can make your point of reference here. Here's Iran and Afghanistan and Pakistan. But let's turn off the borders because to see this, it looks like a flowing river going around a giant island or rock in the middle of the river. But these are mountain ranges. It's not from flowing water. These have bent and contorted over time as the plate boundary is shifted. Now, of course, we would expect that on the plate boundary on the south side. But what about the north side? USGS has zilch 0 marked there. Well, look at it. It's flowing around on both sides of this, the center of the plate. So the center of the craton, if you will. And going around the outside edges, we have folds and bends from something. What's folding and bending? Well, the plate. But what's causing the folding and bending? Tension. Force, power, traveling through the area, of course. And what's it traveling along? It's traveling along the red line. But what about on the north side? You see there's a flow of something going here, and it's breaking on both sides of Iran, and it's making the plates in that shape and making these plate boundaries in that shape. It's a wave. A wave is spreading out. And that's why we're getting equidistantly spaced quakes across vast distances as the wave is spreading out. It's a very low frequency wave where the peaks between the waves are thousands of miles apart between wave peaks. I think that's where the earthquakes are happening, at the peak. It could be at the trough, at the bottom of the wave, where tension is created and somehow a break happens. But whether it's the peak or the trough or anywhere along the wave is equally spaced, like a standing wave of very low frequency, across these huge distances. In the course of a day on the USGS map here, and on 48 hours, you can see it. It's a straight-up stepping stone path from one side of the planet to the other of the same size quakes, within a hair of a point of each other. So Iran, what's going on? This wave is splitting two ways, one down to the south, one up to the north, going around the center of the plate. This wave takes a path of least resistance. So, therefore, if it's split into the south, and it's split into the north, and it's dropping off two 4.9s on either side, as we expect, we look for this. Look where it comes back together. That's right. Let's turn our borders and labels back on. Right at the border of Turkey. Let's go over to Turkey and take a look. Wow, it's like magic. All of a sudden, the earthquakes appear right back together over on the other side. It's not magic, guys. There's a spread going across and focusing back in on where Turkey broke previously with the 7. But the good news is, since the break, a new path has formed over and across Turkey this way, over to the Aegean Sea, leading over this way towards Malta, this way towards North Africa, Tunisia, and I'll take you over and show it to you here. Coming across Turkey, the new break that takes the energy across is going straight over to the Aegean, then carrying on momentum across over past Malta to Tunisia, Algeria, and we would ultimately expect a flow to go back out to the Azores very soon here. As we're reaching all the way to Tunisia, we'll go back just a couple days. There's our earthquake activity from a few days ago right on the coast. Or off the coast of Malta, actually, is really what that is. So it's reaching over as far south as Italy. And I would expect this to go across this, the red line. I mean, would it be any shock for the flow to go over across North Africa and out to the Azores? No, that's one of the ways we expect the energy to flow. Right now, it's caught up between Malta and Turkey. The wave. So it's coming into Malta, reflecting back to Turkey. Coming into Malta, reflecting back to Turkey. Each time it does that, boom, we get a new earthquake breaking out in here in between the previous earthquakes. So right now we're reflecting back and forth. Once we see 4 to 5.0 level activity, should be pretty big. In South Spain, pretty rare. North Morocco, South Spain, Gibraltar. 5.0 level activity, pretty rare there. Should see it break out soon. And then go out to the Azores. That's what we would expect, following the plate boundary on the south side. Now, I've got a warning going. I'm issuing it today, but I just started it today earlier when I was on verbally talking to my Twitch audience without recording, that we're going to watch Romania through Ukraine to Poland, and then out here off the coast of Holland, or Netherlands, and really east of the UK, Northeast English Channel, North Sea, South North Sea. the South North Sea, the Northeast English Channel, right off the coast of Holland. So that's going to be like 4.0 level activity. It should get people's attention if they report it. Same with over in Romania and Ukraine and Poland, all three, Romania, Ukraine, Poland. Now, why? Well, we have a big arrow there, and you can see the mountains here even on Earthquake 3D, but I can show it to you on Google Earth Topography. Take a look. Oh, wait, all my place marks are in the way. There we are. It's like a backwards S shape. These are the mountains covered in trees, but this is the edge of the craton. And then we'll turn our place marks back on, and you'll see there's volcanic fields at each bend in the craton. Here, here, here. Then we go up to the Bruntel. Then we jump over to the Sheb Basin. Then we jump over to Roderberg, East Eifel. Then we go back down to the Chain de Puys, and then furthermore down along the coast of Spain, all the way to Gibraltar. And they're somewhat equidistantly spaced, wouldn't you say, going around the bends of the plate. This is the spots where the wave bends and goes around the plates. Drops off, well, it breaks. Drops off volcanoes along the way in many cases. This has happened for a long time. This is how the plate got its shape, through the wave. This might even be the distance of the wave. I mean, if you really look at it, it does look like a sine wave turned sideways. Let me show you another example of a sine wave turned sideways, this S-shaped bend in the plate. Over here in the United States. There we go. See this? This is the New Madrid seismic zone. Here's Arkansas. Here's St. Louis, Missouri. Down here to the south, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. Let me turn my borders and labels back on. Right? Just for a reference. But now let me turn it the way that the European plate's shaped. There we go. Backwards S. So that is just like this. But ours is going one way and theirs is going the other. You know why? The wave is going this way across Europe out to the mid-Atlantic. And the wave is going the other way, all the way around, up through Alaska, back down through the United States, around the craton this way. And therefore, ours is sideways and, well, depending on which way you look at it, but it's sideways and turned sideways. But it's backwards S. So over here, backwards S, over here, backwards S, both converging on the backwards S shaped. And you can then see the peaks of the wave. And the wave that I'm talking about, maybe I should turn it sine wave, sideways. Try saying that 2 times, 3 times fast. A sine wave sideways. And I know it's wild, but the spacing on this just, you can't deny it. Okay, there's no denying that the earthquakes are equidistantly spaced going across these huge, vast areas, and it's got to be caused by some kind of very low frequency in the plate, electrically induced, caused by the vibrational core of the interior, which is plasma-powered, not solid metal or anything. Not just molten, it's plasma, energy, lightning. Okay, let's talk about the United States. So, going up across past Japan, I've got a warning going in North Japan. From Hokkaido, north into the Kuril Islands for up to 7.0 level activity in the next several days. It was a 7 to 10 day watch. It was issued 2 days ago. So we still have 8 days in the watch. But all this is now happening in Japan. I think it's a no-brainer. Something's getting ready to happen. Now, clearly, we get up to Kamchatka, and we take a huge step down, and here's today's quakes. Hold on. You see it? There's last night's 3.9. So over here, going gangbusters overdrive. Once we get up to Kamchatka, hush, hush. Let's go look at the USGS plate boundary map and just take a look and see what's going on. See where the red earthquake is? That's the most recent, just reported at 4.6. But once we get up to there, it's just a handful of 2s and 3s over in Alaska and major overdrive across half the planet over on the other side. What's going on? Well, the wave is getting up to here, and it's being reflected back into itself, back into Japan, hence the increase in Japan. The standing wave keeps getting reflected back into itself right now, but it will progress over to the east to Alaska and down to Hawaii. Let me show you on Google Earth what I'm talking about. This very low frequency wave going up to Japan gets up to here and is reflected back into itself. And as a standing wave reflects back into itself, guess what increases? The amplitude, or the power, the magnitude. But we would expect this to go around the bend of the wave tank imagine this as a wave tank containing the wave. Gets to this sharp point in the wave tank, most of it's reflected back into itself. Only after a great push does it go over and across and back down in the United States. And it goes over and down the Hawaiian Island chain and dead ends into Hawaii and then crosses the fracture zone over to Baja. Okay. So it comes up, goes over and across to Alaska, and it goes down. The wave goes down to Hawaii. Now, the wave size that we're dealing with right now, you can see 5.3, 5.2, 5.1, 5.5, and 5's going up and across, reaching up to a 4.9, 4.8, right at the pinnacle tip, before we get to the branch point that goes down to Hawaii. Now, that's why I've got a new warning going in Hawaii for a magnitude increase up to 5.1 in the next 7 days. But this is imminent. This is happening now, so it probably would be less than 7 days. But it's on your doorstep. The avenue to come down to Hawaii is right there at this bend in the plate. And if I take the earthquakes out of here, it looks like a big arrow up here going down to Hawaii. Anyway, that's the path that the wave takes down to Hawaii. The rest goes over to Alaska and over to the United States this way and comes in from the northwest, hence my warning for a 5.5 to strike here. And I've already issued the warning. We're 2 days in on a 7-day watch. For Northern California, Eureka for a 5.5, just like the rest of the 5.5s that are going around the rest of the plate right now. Now, we're getting ready to take a step up. I already said that like 5 times in this update. The new solar storm and new deep earthquake. So while we're looking for 5.5s to spread over to California, and we're looking for a 5 to go over to the edge of the Craton into Texas, on the edge of the Craton here in West Texas, and a 4.5 to go over here to Oklahoma, central Oklahoma, and we're looking for a 4 to now strike here on the New Madrid seismic zone in Illinois at the Indiana border in the next 7 to 10 days or less, 7 days. And we're looking for a 4 to strike over on the East Coast in Virginia. Now let's go look up the earthquakes. Now that I've told you what we're going to look for in Hawaii and in, oh, did I tell you Alaska? Alaska, we're going to watch for 5.5 plus. Could go even a magnitude larger, could go up to 6.5. But it should strike in the middle of this whole hot mess of quakes that extends from North Alaska all the way out to the central Aleutians. So the middle of it brings us right in next to Venia Manav volcano, right next to it. So I'd watch for a new 5-ish, 5.5 plus, just like I'm looking for a 5.5 plus to strike down in Northern California. And I'm looking for 5.1 level, 5-ish, to strike in Hawaii. And where in Hawaii? The triangulated point between all these quakes. We got a 3.9 out off the west side of Mauna Loa. We got a 4.1 down next to Pahala. And then a little trail of quakes going from Mauna Loa across Kilauea and reaching down past Pu'uo'o over along the coast. So I'm just going to look in the middle. That's Kilauea South, just south of Kilauea, for a new 5 to strike. And I would also recommend, seriously now, you need to bookmark these sites so you remember them. And I'll put links down below again so you can go over and check their channels. Whenever we see a seismic increase in Hawaii, it's also a good idea to watch the volcanoes. It doesn't mean any kind of blast or anything. I mean, it just new lava flows and impressive lava flows start to happen. You can monitor that, watch it yourself. You don't have to just go to some government website anymore. There's a couple channels on YouTube who I would recommend, and that's Doing Hawaii, and I'll put a link down below to them, and For Two Pineapples. They're both running simultaneous streams covering the volcanoes in Hawaii, and it's great to have on hand for when it starts to flare back up. And you can just see the little flare-ups. It's not even, the media doesn't even cover it. The professionals might notice or something, but it's the seismic flow comes in, and then all of a sudden you start seeing new increases in lava flows and just really interesting stuff. Let's go over on the west coast of the United States, talk about what struck. So we're looking for a new 5.5 in Northern California. Hasn't hit yet. A new spread of earthquakes has reached all the way across. This is the last day. The earthquakes marked in white tell it, but let's get the smallers out of there and just take a look at the 3s. So Southern California got a 3.1, and Texas got a 3.1. Interesting, because the previous day, look what hit. 2 other 3.1s, and another 3.1, and a 3.0. In the middle of it all, the biggest of the bunch, a 3.5. So it's literally 3.1, 3.1, 3.1, 3.1, 3.0, and then another 3.1 over to the east. That's a lot of 3.1 and going on. It's the same size wave going across half the United States from California to Texas And that's the standing wave going across the plate. It's in the 3 range right now. I'm just going to issue a broad warning for the whole planet, and you just have to listen to this and watch for it. Everywhere across the board over the next 7 to 10 days should see a magnitude increase across the board for the whole planet. Everywhere. So where there's 4s, there should be 5s. Where there's 5s, there should be 6s. Where there are 6s, there should be 7s. Where there are 3s, there should be 4s. Where there are 2s, there should be 3s. So we're going to take a step up magnitude-wise. It's like somebody turned the volume up down in the core of the Earth, and it's going to go out and reverberate all across the whole planet. You're going to see a step up across the board as the volume's been turned up. In this case, the amplitude, the magnitude is turned up. So everywhere where there are 3s, there's going to be 4s. Well, that's pretty interesting then, because look where there are 3s. Here, there we go. So Idaho, Northern California. I've already got the warning going in Northern California for 5.5, so that should be no big deal. Everybody should see that. But a cluster of 4s, imagine a cluster of 4s popping off down in Southern California in the next few days. That would get everybody's attention. We're looking for a 5 down in southwest Texas. We're looking for 4.5 where there's nothing of any significance right now in Oklahoma at all. And same with the New Madrid and the East Coast over in Virginia. Nada. There's just microquakes, maybe 0s and 1s, maybe at the most. So it's going to be a big step up over to the east, but everywhere where we currently have activity, you can just count on it. And it means it's going to be a significant amount of 3s popping off where there were 2s. What causes that? Power increase, just like plugging into a wall and then turning up the volume. Glad you asked. As somebody in chat just did. What causes the increase? Literally more electricity and more power flowing through it. Now, something else that's developed in the last day and a half, which I think everybody should pay attention to, is the number of earthquakes at Yellowstone. Now, a whole bunch got reported in a day late. I don't know what's going on with that, but they reported them in a day late. So there they are from yesterday. A stack got thrown in there, maybe late last night, but that wasn't there last night when I did my update. Take a look at it. See that? Big stack. Now, that matters. It does. We were looking for a swarm to break out at Yellowstone. I would definitely call that a swarm when you get a big stack on the same spot. That's in the park at Yellowstone. It does not mean any kind of eruption. But this is what we were looking for. We were looking for a stack of earthquakes to go over to the edge of the craton, which, by the way, I should turn the craton diagram on again. There we go. Over to the edge of the craton, the rusty brownish color there, the purple meeting the rusty brown at Yellowstone. We were looking for a flare-up to go that way. And look at the earthquakes leading over to it. It's a diagonal line, just like the craton edge. Yesterday, we were talking about a 3.5 in my update. That's marked in pink. Today, we're talking about a new swarm at Yellowstone as the energy's going down to the south. Now, an astute observer might be able to see this. Hold on. Do you see the ring-like nature of this? This is 2 days worth of quakes. Let me turn it on a whole week. There's the whole week, 7 days from the USGS. Notice the ring of quakes? Now, really, it's more like an arrow or a parenthesis shape going in one direction, to the east. This line of quakes over the last 7 days going along the edge of the craton this way, and this line of quakes mimicking our arrow across South Nevada going over into Utah. They both come over here to Utah and the Wasatch, and then you don't see anything here, Colorado. But then we pick back up down in Texas. Well, gosh, guys, that matches this. Let's go back and compare. So, deformed edge of the craton, the purple part, right? You see it now, right? It goes over to the stable edge of the craton, then goes down and around the edge and back up the east coast. And these are the earthquakes 0.0 and greater reported from the USGS over the last 7 days. It's indisputable that there's a spread of earthquakes going across this. And that means there's something going across there. Not just the earthquakes. There's something going across there that's causing the quakes. It's not one quake causing the other. It turns out there's some other force going across the plates causing the quakes. Some kind of tensional force of some kind. I call it the QLF or EQLF, which is earthquake low frequency or quake low frequency. Some kind of very low frequency that's going around objects. It's actually like a vibrational force, but it's electrical in nature. Electrical, vibrational in nature going around the plates. That's what apparently is going on here. And it's a huge discovery to make that. To find out that there's something flowing across the plates and that you can actually watch it. and progress. Watch it progress like a flowing river. So let's go look up the quake, see if there's anything else worth mentioning here in the last day and a half. Yesterday's update kind of got off the rails when I started to look up the earthquakes up here in the Northwest. I don't think I have anything more to report to you from yesterday. Let's just see. One earthquake. Look at this. Since yesterday, it's like they turned everything off, or maybe it really did get quiet. Look at that. A 0.2 at Mount Rainier, right below the crater of Mount Rainier. But that's just a microquake. A 1.8 down in Oregon. What's this? Oh, another explosion? That's from 2 days ago. What the heck? That's from 2 days ago. All right. Now I'm turning off that Craton diagram. That's from 2 days ago. What's going on with that feed? Hold on. So here's what we're showing in the last day for Washington and Oregon. Nothing. Now, once we get right over the border, there we go. We've got earthquakes reported again, going in a diagonal line down across California. We have a change, though. Northern California, the earthquake swarm shifted from next to Parkfield over to this place called Mineral, California. Let me take you and show you what's here. This is important to look at because of the fire potential. We've seen earthquakes break out before fires break out. So where are we? We shifted from Paradise, next to Paradise. Look, take a look at the screen. I'm going to turn my place marks now. See what this is? We're right next to Mount Lassen stratovolcano, next to the other fire spot from August 2nd of 2020. Something is going on up here. So, seismically speaking, something's going on. I have not checked to see the weather or to see if there's any fires going on up here. Up in the far, far northeast, take a look at this. This is from last night, yesterday. We looked that up. I don't think I should need to look up that earthquake again, but it's next to Bittner Butte, right across the border over in Nevada. The rest of the quakes going down along the coast and over to the east, I can just tell you really quickly, look at the spacing of the quakes going down the creeping section of the San Andreas and where we dead end to again today. First of all, the spacing. Somewhat equidistantly spaced as this wave, a few hundred miles long, going down and going... Oh, by the way, as the wave comes into the United States, look at this. As this very low frequency wave, thousands of miles apart for the peaks, comes into the U.S. and it comes in here, look at the peaks of the fracture zones itself. It mimics it, the wave. But once we get into the United States, it tightens up. The wave peaks become more frequent. The frequency increases. The number of peaks goes up. We go 1, 2, 3, just in the course of about 500 to 1,000 miles at the most. So the frequency increases of the wave, but that's along here. And then you see the quakes matching that. Once we get down to Parkfield, we got the drill points again, which are topics of discussion in several of my videos. Right next to this spot we get down to, that's where thousands and thousands of drill points begin and go down to the south tip of the valley. And then we see the same sized earthquakes that come in, 1.3, develop out down at the south side, 1.3, and 1.3, and 1.3. Notice that? We have 1.2, 1.4, and a 1.3, and a 1.6. Now, if you take the 1.2 plus the 1.4 plus the 1.3 equals 1.6. And then down here to the east by southeast, what do we have? A 1.3 and a 1.5. They're about the same size. It is not just about. Over to the east, it's a 1.6 and a 1.3. And down to the south, it's a 1.5 and a 1.3. And up to the west-northwest, it's a 1.4 and a 1.3. Do you see what I'm saying? Same size wave going down and across over into Southern California. It's just small right now, but this is why you must pay attention to the small quakes. Here's another reason you must pay attention to the small quakes. A new 3.1 struck today down south at the south tip of the San Jacinto next to Salton Sea Volcano. Let me show you where it struck, why it matters. All the 3.1s that struck over the past 2 days, coming down the coast. All the other 3.1s. Seriously, you go back and listen to my updates from yesterday and the day before. I'm like, hey, look at all these 3.1s coming down the coast. Now we have one final 3.1 down on the south side, down here at the volcano. Here's the volcano marked with the Smithsonian. On the south side of it, we have our geothermal turbines where humans have drilled in to get steam. And the earthquake is striking right over here on the west side, which is slow slipping to top it all off on the San Jacinto. The slow slip happens when the plate starts to shift. And it's been slow slipping for many years, according to professionals. So it's building, they say, into an extremely large earthquake along the San Jacinto. That's what the professionals say, at the Anza Gap down at Borrego Springs. Pretty interesting, right? Let's recap for everybody, guys. I know you got blinded by the earthquake info, but check it out. New big deep earthquake. Wake up. New big deep earthquake. Following the solar storm. On schedule. Is there any other area that I missed out on? Well, Central and South America. Yes, I did miss out on Central and South America. Let's talk about this. How about the same-sized earthquakes? Let's go back a few days. So there we go. Let's get all the small ones out of there and just look at the Boers and Greater, for instance. There it is. So color coding tells us how old these are. This one's start of the week, and then this one's 2 days ago. So what size are they? 2 different earthquakes, same size, coming in down across the stair-step fracture zone that connects into South America. You see the stair-step fracture zone? Now look what struck down here. Just a little bit bigger, 5.5 to 5.8. If you combine 5.5 plus 5.5 plus 5.4 plus all these other 4s, we get a 5.8 or 5.7. Now let me show you on the USGS map what really happened over the past several days. 5.5 came in out here, the edge of the Nazca Plate. Then another 5.5 struck day later, 2 days later, down here on the stair-step fracture zone as the wave is coming in. Once it gets here, it travels down, around, and underneath. That's why I've got a big arrow there. And it dead ends down in the Antarctic Plate at the South Sandwich Islands. And look, coming in, going down, travels underneath, strikes here. Same time it's moving that way, coming in from the north, look what happened. Up to the north, there's a north and south facing fracture zone here that the earthquake is on. It looks like a jagged edge. I can show it to you on the USGS map here. See this? Okay, right where they meet is where the other earthquake struck, on the north side, up here. So clearly something's coming across this way, and something's coming across this way. And dead ending into South America on both sides, north and south. So what hit on the north side? Well, I'll be darned. 5.3 to 5.5. If you take them and add them together, it equals 5.4 to 5.5. 5.3 plus 5.1 equals 5.4. Add in the other 5.3 or 5.1, and you're at a 5.5. So it's the same size going down on the south side, all the way over this way. And it's on the north side this far, here. So next step, 5.5 over on the east side of the Caribbean. Going and following the edge of the plate over to the east, striking over next to Venezuela. So Venezuela over to the East Caribbean, east of Puerto Rico. It's pretty far, pretty big area. It's 500 miles across. So we'll just go right in the middle of the Eastern Caribbean. What island is this? Wow, we don't have any, no names on it or anything. Okay. St. Joseph Island. Is that Martinique, Dominica, Guadalupe? Okay. I don't know my island names over here. I should learn them. I'm sorry. Again, I apologize, guys. I've got a vast trove of knowledge in my head, and I need to add more to it, obviously. Okay, all right. So we're going to watch over there for a 5.5. And you know what? Let me just go ahead and go get this out there now. We're also going to see a new earthquake next to Jamaica, going over Jamaica to Haiti again. And this encompasses Haiti and Dominican Republic, and as far west as Jamaica, as far north as Cuba. And we'll watch for a 5.5 in here as well. Man, it's going to be fives. It's like that Oprah where she's like, you know, car for you and a car for you and a car for you. This is like a 5 for you and a 5 for you and a 5 for you. And this is just where we're starting. Fives for everybody, right? And this is just where we're starting. We're taking the next step up across the board. The whole planet's going to see a big increase on this. And next to the deep earthquakes is where we watch for shallower, larger earthquakes up to a magnitude larger. So for my people down in New Zealand, guys, we're shaving it real close. Let me explain. This deep earthquake is on the south side of that letter D. Here's our letter D. Now the plate boundary comes down and goes down into New Zealand this way. Now we're on your north side of New Zealand, obviously. but we're on the south side of Fiji. So there's two ways this can go. Well, it really looks different when we look at it with color map, right? So there's two ways this can go. It can go down to the south, and it can go over to the west, pretty much. It will also go to the east, don't get me wrong. It'll go across, and just like I talked about in South America. But when I'm talking about over here, we're shaving it real close. You're looking at 1,000 miles to your north. A big force is coming up on the underside. You already have a deep earthquake here below New Zealand. So there is the potential for this new 7 to strike somewhere very close to New Zealand. With it, we're playing around with 500 miles, and I'm trying to get it down to 200 miles for forecasting purposes. So I would look between our current sets of quakes, between the deeps. Deep here, down below the volcano in... Oh, by the way, I didn't show that. There's a giant volcano that this is next to down in New Zealand. Check this out. Just wait till you see this. Taranaki. Now, they've forestry clear-cut all the way around it, and that's farmland that goes up to there, so they're farming it right up to the edge of the forest where they've cut. So the Mother Nature hasn't made this perfectly round, right? I mean, but Taranaki is a huge volcano here, and then at the center of the North Island of New Zealand is Taupo supervolcano. And the earthquakes down below, right here next to Taranaki, or south of Rupahu, and this one actually shows activity, Rupahu, or however you say it. And that's something to keep an eye on as well volcanically, which I don't even issue warnings on, or I don't issue forecast for, but it's something that we need to keep watch on. Something is going on down below. There is no doubt about that. We're going to be shaving it really close, most likely north of New Zealand, but we have to warn everybody from New Wellington, or actually basically from the plate boundary where the arrow is at Kaikoura, all the way across the North Island, all the way up to Fiji, to be on watch for this new 7 to break out north of New Zealand. If it strikes on land, I'm trying to find the halfway point between two areas far down below, 150 miles down below, or 300 to 500 kilometers down below. This could be at an angle down below for all I know. I don't know which angle it's coming up at. There's no way for me to know that unless we develop new types of sensors that we would have to develop on our own. I mean, I've got an idea on that, but we could talk about that separately at another time. So let's just recap. Big-time seismics taking place. I'm having to do multiple videos, multiple days in a row. That should be a wake-up call for everybody, because you guys know how much it's a pain in the butt to make videos and get them out on YouTube. But I'm recording here now live on Twitch, and we'll get it out over on YouTube in just a few. This is go time. We call this seismic go time. It's only here a few times a year, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. Am I talking about quote-unquote go time? Well, we're here at go time. What is today? April 28th? Remember the dates. Got to remember those, too, at the time where there's big seismic go time. But this is timed with the sun. Let's just go back to the start of the beginning of this update, talking about the arrival of the big solar storm that sent Northern Lights electrical charge, glowing air. The Northern Lights are just glowing air from the electricity, and the electricity goes down to ground. Ground is ultimately the core of the earth. It comes back up, and you see stuff like this. And then, big earthquakes, I'm going to be busy for the next 7 to 10 days again. So we had a lull in activity for a few weeks as there was no solar activity going on, for to mention hardly any, just a little bit of solar wind, and that was it. Now here we are, and we get our big solar storm arrival, and boom, we are back in it. So it's a good time to develop an emergency kit, right? I'm not going to beat the drum on it anymore. You guys can change your clothes and a set of shoes, and flashlight and batteries and all that stuff, first aid and sanitation. That's just the basics. But make sure you got it. It'll come in handy. You might end up using it for something else. Fire, flood. Might even just use it out of convenience if you lose something. Who did I not mention? The Australians? Oh, man. Guys, sorry. My dear Australian friends, I'm sorry. Let me quickly give you a quick update before we sign on off out of here. We're going to look for a new 5.0 level activity to break out here right on the back side of the arrow. Once that happens, I'm going to watch for a big increase to come in across Australia and strike back down to the east-southeast, back down by Melbourne, Kangaroo Island. You see where the earthquakes are here now. We're just going to watch right here on this north side of the interior part of your plate, which really is a fracture zone. And we're going to watch there, and it should be in the 5 range. It should get everybody's attention. We should see at least 2 5s. One come in the northwest, one down to the east-southeast. We should also see a spread go all the way around the plate then. Perth and Sydney and at the center by Uluru, Ayers Rock. It already happened once, 2s and 3s. But like I said, it's going to go up across the board, so I'm expecting 5s to go across the plate instead of 3s. I mean, you're at mid-range 3, I'm sorry. So going 1.5 magnitude higher there in Australia. And all around you, look what's going on. Look what's going on. The whole Indo-Australian plate from India past Australia down to New Zealand is shifting. This is 2 days worth of earthquakes. Just one more time. Just let me turn off all the magnitudes. All the numbers get everybody confused. But everybody does connect the dots really well. Makes you wonder how the professionals miss this. Right? There is no progression of earthquakes, they said. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? They told me that they publicly said that I was cherry-picking earthquakes to make it look like there was a progression of earthquakes going across things. This was said by a top professor. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. That's when I went live. I went live with my live stream just to prove I wasn't cherry-picking quakes. You guys could follow along with me and see it spread over to Europe and go up and across and around and back down to the United States and then go around the United States like some kind of wave going around something. And that's when it dawned on me. There's a wave going around something. That means there's a force that causes earthquakes. And the wave is dropping off the same size quakes all the way along the way. Pretty interesting, because then you could start to forecast if you could see where the wave is. And you can see where the wave is as evidenced by the current earthquakes. This is basic 101 stuff that I thought of back in 2011, where everybody else said it was impossible. And I'm like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I go, look, you can see a progression of earthquakes going out of the West Pacific, heading over towards Europe. It's going to be there in 2 days. People said, oh, yeah, well, there's no way you can know a region that's going to move. Earthquakes are random. I'm like, no, they're not. If they were random, they'd happen all over the place. Instead, they happen along the plate boundaries, and they're spreading, and they're equal spaced. The same size. What an amazing discovery. Anyway, I hope somebody's able to use it in the future. I'm going to keep beating the drum on it. I'm never backing down. It's 100% on the screen. There it is. Take it or leave it. Well, you don't get to leave it. You have to take it. It's a scientific fact. There's a spread of earthquakes going across the plates. They're equal distantly spaced. They're somewhat the same size, and they're coming out from the West Pacific and down below. You're going to have to adjust all your ideas and beliefs around that fact that it's happening. And it's been observed 1,000 million times for the last 12 years at least, by me alone, live, because I got accused of faking the quakes because people didn't want to believe there was a spread of quakes. All right, fun stuff. Science. Science. SCYENCSE. That's how we spell it here in Missouri. 12:30 a.m. I'm signing off out of here. It is now officially the 28th. It is now officially Friday. It is now officially the weekend. And I hope you're ready to have a better weekend than you did last weekend. Peace out.